Tips with Toni. Tips with Toni. All about nutrition from your favorite dietitian. Everything you need to digest in your mind. Tips with Toni. Tips with Toni. Making you healthier one bite at a time. With Toni. Woo.
Hello, and welcome to the Tips with Toni podcast. I'm Toni Marinucci, your registered dietitian, helping you get healthy one bite at a time. This episode is going to be a tearjerker. I'm warning you guys right now, I've never really told my story fully through and through, completely unedited, completely raw. As a nutrition professional, I try to keep it professional, and so therefore I will allude to things that I had gone through in my past, but never really go into detail about it. I want to say it's because I was protecting myself, which is partly true. But also I think it was my ego getting in the way and feeling like, oh, I have to have my stuff together because I'm a dietitian, so I can't let people know that I'm human, which I'm realizing is ridiculous. And my story, actually, I think a lot of you, it's going to help you so that you recognize that there's hope and that if I could do it, you could do it. And I'm going to explain kind of what's helped me get to where I'm at today. So get ready, buckle up, and here we go. So, in the past, I have told you guys I grew up overweight, and, I'm part of a Greek and Italian family, and I told you guys that I was teased as a kid. I mean, I'm not sure if you know this, but, I grew up in a very well-off town, I would say, or upper middle class, and a lot of the people that in my school were very teeny tiny. It's mostly a Jewish community. My best friend in the world is Jewish, and she is like 5'0" and like 90 pounds soaking wet. And let's just give you an example of that's what a majority of what my classmates were. And I remember even at 9 years old, I was the big girl. 9 years old, I was classified as a big girl. That's where the teasing started, and that's where I was considered, I was the tomboy. I didn't have, any boyfriends until I was actually 18 years old. So all before that, I was like the guy's friend, but never the girlfriend, if that makes sense. And I just wanted to let you guys know on that. And I actually wasn't morbidly obese. I didn't have obesity. I was just always overweight and always bigger than my peers. And so I always felt like I stuck out. Now, at school, it was difficult for me. And then going home, it was a catch-22. I'm going to be really honest with you. So my family is overweight. Most of them are overweight and actually have obesity. And at the same time, it was very confusing because I would get judged for overeating and told to stop eating after a certain amount, but then I'd also be kind of like made to feel a certain way if I didn't eat or if I didn't have seconds. So it never made sense. And I wish I could explain it now. But to be honest, I don't even try to make sense of it because now I just stick to doing what I know is best. But looking back now, it's like I couldn't win. It's if I ate the right things, I was kind of judged and viewed as to why are you not having seconds? But if I had seconds, I was like, oh, are you sure you want to eat that? I love my grandmother so much, but one thing she would do is she would make faces at the table, kind of puffing her cheeks as if if you have another serving, you're going to get bigger. And it was really, really confusing, and it really played with my emotions. Now, the saddest part, I think, about all of it is I actually remember being such a happy child and naturally just so joyful and excited about life and never really feeling like there was anything wrong with me. But when people continuously point things out to you, and make you feel like you're worse or less than because of your physical body and because of your weight, you start to listen to those feelings and you start to listen to those thoughts, and you now start to question if everything that you believed of yourself was actually true. And the sad thing is I actually started to believe it. And I would look in the mirror, and I actually wrote a poem when I was 13 years old. I was in the 8th grade. I'll never forget it. Mrs. Johnson, she gave me an A, but at the paper after the poem, she wrote, "Please come see me." And that was my first trip to the guidance counselor, where I just talked about how much I disliked my body and I didn't like the way that I looked, because that poem, although it was well written, it was not nice. It was not nice. It was all about hating the reflection of what I saw in the mirror and wanting to break the mirror down and being so unhappy with what I saw and feeling like I could never, I would never have a boyfriend. I would never have anybody that loved me. It was really, 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 really sad. And now I was struggling with this stuff, but I kind of alluded to it in my writing. I talked about it in my writing. I went to the guidance counselor a lot about it. I maybe reached to certain teachers, but the ironic part about it is actually, so I grew up where my sister struggled with behavioral issues, and she, from the age of 5 years old, ran away from school. I'll never forget, I was in 2nd grade, and I got called to the principal's office, and they're like, why did your sister run away from school? I'm like, I was 7. I'm like, how do I know why my sister ran away from school? And it started with that, and then it's, she would throw temper tantrums, and it got really loud. And, luckily today my sister and I have a great relationship, and she's much better now. But the reason why I bring that up is because my household and the problems that existed within the home were always about my sister. And I never felt like there was room for me to talk about my insecurities. I never felt like there was room for me to get the proper help with my nutrition, because I felt like I was the older sister. I had to have my stuff together. And there was just so much going on. It's like, how could I add to this chaos? Like, how could I tell my mom and dad that I was unhappy and I was depressed and I hated the person I saw in the mirror, and my weight, I wanted help for my weight, even though it would seem to be kind of normal within the family. I didn't understand it, and I needed that help. And so instead of basically getting the proper help, what I did is I tried to do it on my own. I tried to diet on my own. And you can imagine, as a teenager, what do you do as a dieting and what you read in the magazines? I mean, I did the most ridiculous things, which I know a lot of people are doing today. And now I look hindsight 2020. But then it was like, oh, okay, if I want to lose weight, I just don't eat. Let me just not eat. But that didn't work because I played sports, right? So I at the same time, I wanted to make varsity. I was a freshman and sophomore. I remember both years, actually. I wanted to be on varsity, and I tried really hard at tryouts, but I remember not having any energy because all I ate all day was an orange, and I couldn't get the energy up. So it's like, okay, yeah, I might lose this weight, but I have no energy to play this sport, and the long-term goal is not going to be reachable or attainable. I was a really good student, but my grades started to slip because I had no energy to focus in school. I would skip meals. It was absolutely horrible. And what happens when you undereat like that, you can only hold off for so long, and then you end up overeating and binge eating. And I remember myself trying to throw up, but I just couldn't get myself to. And I'm really happy I never fell into that cycle of binging and purging, because that is a whole other, would have brought on a whole other slew of complications and complexities and all that. But I do remember then overeating and being really upset. And so because I couldn't throw up, because I just didn't have the guts, honestly, to do it. I didn't know how I could do it. I would exercise, and I would exercise more. I would go to basketball practice. I would go to volleyball practice. I would go to tryouts, whatever activity. I was always really, really active. But even though I was overweight, I was still very active. But I would come home and exercise more and just try to exercise it all out. And it's so unhealthy. And now, looking back, I was never diagnosed with anything. And maybe if I had seen, a psychiatrist or a psychologist at that time, I may have been diagnosed with borderline, I would even just say disordered eating, not even an eating disorder, because I don't think it ever let it get to that extreme. But regardless, it was definitely something, and I should preface this, if this is triggering anybody right now and bringing up old thoughts, old emotions, and they've struggled with an eating disorder, then I will say you might not want to listen, or you could turn it off. If it is triggering anything, please reach out, please get help. I know that, it is a fine line, and when it becomes helpful and then when it also becomes hurtful. So I definitely just wanted to kind of share that. So basically I remember always just, it started from a very negative place, that change that I wanted to make. And then, I did start to kind of recognize that wasn't working. And it was when I realized that the small changes over time, and why I'm so passionate about what I do right now, is about committing to healthier living. And I realized that exercise, if I exercise in a healthy way, in a small way, and it wasn't because I was abusing my body, but more just because it was like, I was maybe a little bit sad or anxious or upset or whatever, and exercise made me feel better, and I use it in more of a positive way. I was like, okay, this could actually help me, and I could lose weight at the same time, and I noticed, like, when I would eat certain foods, like high sugary foods, I felt really like groggy and sluggish, but when I ate lots of vegetables and drank mostly water, I felt better. So I noticed that when I started to get rid of the extremes and commit to those small changes, I started to really feel better. And so that's when I decided to go to school to become a registered dietitian. And I think the one thing that really, really helped me was I kind of had to get out of my household. I love my family. We have a great relationship right now. But at the time, things were always loud, always screaming, always yelling. And also when things were good and the family was together, there was always food, and I just never felt like I could really get away. So I honestly think being away at college, I went to school upstate New York, and I studied dietetics for 4 years, and I was around people, like-minded people who understood the value of nutrition and wanted to learn better. And I was away from my family, from the temptation. So I will say that definitely helped a lot, because it really helped me kind of find my own way of eating, and I got to explore new things and stuff like that. But I will say, I think the mindset and the challenges were still present along the way. For a while, it took me a while to really get into the groove of like exercising regularly, not as a reaction to, oh, I'm sad, but as actually being proactive and thinking, well, if I exercise on a regular basis, I've noticed that my mood is more upbeat, and it's no longer like I'm sad, so I work out. It's more of I work out, and so now I'm not sad as often or as much. And so I started to do that. Or instead of if I overate really bad, and I kind of ate a lot of fried foods and stuff, and then started to eat really, really healthy, and then I decided I'm going to eat really clean and really healthy. I started, instead of doing it as a reaction to me not eating well, I started to proactively eat really well to prevent ever feeling like I completely overdid it. And so if you notice what I teach today, right? I stopped kind of like the cause and effect method, and I just tried like more of a proactive method, and that alone helped me tremendously. It definitely wasn't easy. There was lots of challenges along the way. You have to remember too, like not all of so I was away from my family, but my friends weren't as motivated, and sometimes they were and sometimes they weren't. But what I learned is that I couldn't depend on other people for what I wanted for myself. And so I stopped blaming others. So I know right now it might sound like I was blaming my parents, I was blaming my sister, I was blaming those around me. But what actually ended up helping me was stop putting the finger and pointing it on other people as preventing me from getting to my goals. At the end of the day, I needed to take responsibility for what I wanted and go after that. And so I started to be proactive, and I started to recognize that nobody else can stop me from getting to where I want to be. And so I prefaced that whole story to let you know that at some point I was struggling, and at some point, yes, you could say this person caused this or that person caused that, but the point that I decided to take responsibility for my actions and do something about it was the day that like my life forever changed. And so I want to talk a little bit about what's helped me kind of get to where I'm at. And that is definitely therapy. I talk about this. I probably don't share it enough. A lot of people tell me they don't really know my story, and I do apologize for that. I definitely want you guys to know, like, I am somebody who has struggles and all that, but I also want you to know that I can help you, right? So I get kind of caught up in like, how much do I share? How much is too much? But I'm letting you guys know now, and I'm going to be more open about it. Like, I go to therapy every single week. And growing up, we would go to family therapy because, like I said, my sister struggled. But I never really went on my own until I had a traumatic experience where I lost my best friend to suicide, which is a whole other story in itself. But that really kind of pulled me back. It kind of brought me back into that depressed state and feeling like, I don't know, like I was really lost for a while, and that really affected me. So it actually, the good part out of it was put me back into therapy. And what I recognized from learning in therapy and growing is that, you know, we're going to have these uncomfortable feelings. We're going to have these situations come up that are going to try to derail us from our goal. But the most important thing that we can do is stay on track and really kind of reframe the way we look at things. So that way we don't allow them to keep us stuck and not moving forward. And so therapy is definitely something that's helped me. Over the years, I've even changed therapists. Like, so I had seen the family therapist and I went back to see her one-on-one. And at first, I think it was good because she knew the history and she knew where I came from. But at a certain point, you know, when my mom was going to her, my sister was going to her, my dad was going to her, then I started to realize, okay, I feel like I might need somebody. I've grown a lot from that space, and now I need somebody kind of that doesn't know the whole family and just knows me for me and can help me develop into the new me that I want to be. And so I actually changed therapists. So never think you're like stuck to one, you know, you can change. I changed therapists, and now my new therapist, I feel like, is that person that really is like, she says everything. She knows me. She gets me. She doesn't always agree with me. She challenges me. And it's been really, really helpful in a lot of different ways. Another thing that has helped me tremendously is I invest in coaching. I have a business coach who also just so happens to be a registered dietitian, who also, shout out to Toni Stefan, I love him to death, who also just happens to be, he was an online nutrition coach, so he helped people with their nutrition, but now he also helps registered dietitians grow their business. And he helped me stay on track with my nutrition. He helps me stay on track with what matters most in my business and my values. And because I invested my time and energy into him, he's actually saved me a ton of time and energy of frustration within myself. So I've been able to kind of pick up speed, and like, I'm constantly worried and about other people's nutrition and focus on what other people want and need. He reminds me that if I don't take care of my nutrition and my exercise first, like, nobody else is going to be able to benefit from that. And I had this old habit from being the caretaker and from constantly trying to make sure, is my sister okay? Is the family okay? You know, when my best friend, she committed suicide, she was struggling with drug addiction. Is she okay? You know, I was always kind of like playing that person that was focused on everybody else and letting myself become last. And investing in a coach, he helps keep me accountable. He helps remind me to take care of me first. So I would say both my therapist and my coach help me to do that. And they have literally changed my life in more ways than one. I am forever grateful, and I really do believe that they will forever be in my life. So I think if you are someone who's been thinking about seeing a therapist, you know, get one. Seriously, get one. They're really, really helpful to kind of bounce ideas off of, to talk to remind you of what matters. Coaching, I can't talk enough about it. I wouldn't do it if I didn't believe in it. So that's really important. And I would say the last thing that's definitely helped me was that group support. So you guys know I have a free Facebook group where you have like-minded individuals who are breaking up with dieting, committing to healthier living. You know, I noticed that in my life personally, I needed to surround myself with more people who thought and felt like that. Not to say I don't have friends and family members that are still doing the quick fixes and the detox diets and like all of that stuff. But I do limit my time with certain people that I find kind of trigger those old emotions in me. And I choose to purposely surround myself with people who know how to, say, drink alcohol in moderation. And they're not like those binge drinkers that then eat, you know, all the fried foods afterwards. You know, if I go and like I said, at the end of the day, it's my responsibility. It's my goals and what I want and what I need. So if I do choose to go and surround myself with them, then I still stick to what I know is true and what my values are. But if I continuously hung out around that crowd on a regular basis, it's going to be a lot harder for me to kind of really resist that temptation. And so I started to recognize like who I surrounded myself with, what I listened to, what I read, personal development books, audio books, podcasts, following people on Instagram that are positive, motivating, supportive, that understand the value of your overall wellness, right? These are things that truly, truly help me. So I just wanted to bring that up to let you guys know that I was at a place that you might be today. You might be feeling really insecure. You might be feeling alone, like nobody gets it. You might be that caretaker that's taking care of everybody but yourself. You might be procrastinating, maybe you want to start your own business, or maybe you want to sign up for that marathon or whatever it is, or just get yourself committed to going to the gym regularly. But you keep pushing it off, and you keep finding that every time a challenge, you might be, doing well for a while, but then a challenge comes up and puts you off track, and then you're back again. I just want you guys to know that, like, I was there. I've been there. But there is a point, you will come to a point where you're just like, enough is enough. I've been there. I've done that. I felt that way. I don't want to feel that way again. I know that when I eat healthy and I exercise regularly, I feel better. I know that when I put myself first, I get enough sleep, I feel better. I know that when I go to therapy or I invest in someone who believes in me, or hire a coach, I know that those are the things that matter to me most. So those are the things you need to focus on, and you can get through it. You just have to believe, number one, believe that you can, and number two, set yourself up for success. Surround yourself with people, hire a coach, do whatever you need to do to keep it top of mind for you that this is truly what you want, and you're kind of done with your old lifestyle and you're starting and ready to embrace a new one. So I hope that this inspired you in some way. I hope that you felt like you can connect with me. If you did, if this resonated with you, this was really, really brave of me to do. And I'm like not even like ashamed to say it, of the fact that I'm kind of like tooting my own horn, but I'm really proud of myself because I feel like I used to kind of hide behind this like big smile and like I had all my stuff together. But I'm learning that that's not helping anyone, and I was lying to you. I was absolutely lying to you. We all struggle, we all have our story, and our story makes us who we are. So thank you guys so much for listening. If this resonated with you in any way, please let me know. Send me a message on Facebook, Instagram, or email me at TipsWithToni@gmail.com. Thank you so, so, so much for listening. Love you guys. Love the support. You guys are awesome, and I will talk to you guys next week. Thank you so much for listening. This is the Tips with Toni podcast. I'm Toni Marinucci, your registered dietitian, helping you get healthy one bite at a time.